Good morning, first grade scholars. Miss Thurston here. Today is Tuesday, March 24th, 2020. And today I'm going to be reading you guys a story. And I know that you guys are seeing stories on the first grade YouTube page, but we're going to be answering questions a little bit differently in this lesson. All right? The story that we're going to read today is The Ant Bully, and it's written and illustrated by John Nickle. Let's take a quick look at the front cover. And let's look at the title, The Ant Bully. Take a quick second and I want you to tell your parent, is the genre of this story fiction or nonfiction? Is this story, do you think it will be a fake story that we're going to read just for fun? Or do you think it's going to be a real story where we will learn something? Go ahead and tell your parents. What do you predict the genre of this story is? Great job. If you said that this story was fiction, you are absolutely correct. So, before we read, let's go ahead and look at our thinking job. Our thinking job says, how did Lucas's relationship with the ants change? How did Lucas's relationship with the ants change? So, as we're reading, and after we're finished reading, I want you to be thinking about this question. How did his relationship with the ants change? On the front cover here, I can see that he's doing what? He is shooting the ants with water. Doesn't seem like a very kind thing to do. I also noticed that the title says The Ant Bully. So I want you to think about what that means and what we think their relationship is going to start off like. Okay? As I'm reading, you're going to see me hold up these signals. You're going to see me hold up a stop sign for stop and a cute little brain for think. When I hold up these signs, that means I want you to stop and think. Okay? So I'll ask a question while I'm reading the story, and then you will stop and think to answer the question. Got it? All right, let's go ahead and get started. The Ant Bully by John Nickle. Lucas wore funny glasses and a strange hat. Some kids thought he was weird. Sid, the neighborhood bully, was especially mean to him. Oh, look at that. So, Lucas bullied the ants. But the ants didn't like to get wet. Oh, wow. And soon they had enough. So let's stop and think. Think back to what Miss Thurston just read. Why was Lucas bullying the ants? What caused him to bully the ants? I'll give you about 10 seconds to think about why Lucas was bullying the ants. Awesome job. If you answered that he was bullying the ants because he was getting bullied, you are absolutely correct. It says it right here that he was getting bullied, and that caused him to bully the ants. Let's keep reading. With great skill and team effort, they stuffed Lucas's large body into their ant hole and forced him into the queen's chamber. Coolly, she looked him over. So you're the one who always floods my colony. Don't you realize how long and hard we work to build what you destroy in seconds? Oh, she does not sound happy at all. Lucas was too stunned to respond. He was shocked. The queen took his silence as a further insult. She turned to the ant wizard and said, "Shrink this boy and put him on trial." "Guilty!" thundered the judge. Lucas's sentence was really harsh. If they get a harsh sentence, let's see. Hard labor with the worker ants. Oh, wow. Gathering food, too. Defending the colony against wasps. Oh, boy. I would not want to do any of those jobs. And spiders. But the worst part of his sentence was attending to the queen with the drones. So we just read about the different things that the queen made Lucas do. So let's stop and think. I want you to tell your parents 2 things that Lucas had to do as punishment while he lived in the ant colony. I'm going to go back and turn through some pages so that you can see what are some things that Lucas had to do as punishment. Go ahead and tell your parents. All right, awesome job. He had to do things like defend the colony from wasps and spiders. He had to help the queen. He had to gather food. So that was really punishment for a little boy who wasn't used to doing that type of work. Very good. The queen, however, was pleased with Lucas's work, and she told Lucas that she would set him free if he passed one final test. "You must go home and bring me a red swell gel." "But I will need help," Lucas pleaded. "We ants work together. How else could we gather food, defend ourselves, or please our queen?" The queen smiled and said, "Take Speedy and Renee with you. They are upstairs." As they waited for the cover of night, the 2 ants had many questions for their new friend. "What was it like to be a giant?" asked Speedy. "Were you the biggest giant?" Renee wanted to know. "I was no giant," replied Lucas. "Not compared with Sid, the bully. He was always stealing my hat and spraying me with the hose." "Oh, like you did to us?" said Speedy and Renee together. After an awkward silence, the 3 set out for Lucas's home. Wow, so I noticed that the ants called Lucas out. They were like, "Oh, you were getting bullied. He was spraying you with water, and you were doing the same thing to us." Wow, I wonder how that made Lucas feel. They get to Lucas's house, and when the last light was turned off, they quietly snuck into the kitchen to find swell gel. It's a type of candy. But just as they were about to make off with their prize, bright lights flashed, and a booming voice filled the room. "Ants! Look." Lucas's father was yelling. Let me see, he's trying to hold something to kill them with. "No!" Lucas yelled. His father stopped and looked closer. Lucas jumped on his father's face so Speedy and Renee could escape. Wow. Let's go ahead and stop and think. How did Lucas help the ants in this part of the story? What did he do to show he was a good friend instead of a bully in this part of the story? I'm going to give you about 10 seconds to tell your parents the answer. Go. Great job. He helped them go find the candy, and when his dad was about to swat them, he jumped on his glasses so that the other two could escape. If that's not a friend, I don't know what is. Back at the colony, the queen was very sad. Speedy and Renee had returned, but not Lucas. Then, to her delight, Lucas arrived. The queen said, "Young man, you have been so brave, and you have learned the ways of the ants well. Your courage will be rewarded." So she told the ant wizard to fill his dropper with growth potion. Oh, wow. Lucas is going to be big again. Look at that. The wizard trickled potion drops into Lucas's ears until he slowly fell asleep. The ants laid him outside in the tall, soft grass. But the next morning, Lucas awoke to an alarming sight. Who was it? It was Sid the bully. But the ants had seen him first. So let's do one last stop and think. What did the ants do to Sid the bully? Give me about 10 seconds to answer. All right, yes, they shrunk Sid the bully. And I think he deserved it because he wasn't very kind in this story. All right, so that brings us to the end of our story, The Ants Bully by John Nickle. Let me remind you that our thinking job was how did his relationship with the ants change? So now that we've read this story, you should be able to answer this question. How did his relationship with the ants change? Parents, you can find link to this video, the worksheet that I've created with 3 questions about this story. The first question is our thinking job. How did Lucas's relationship with the ants change by the end? What lesson do you think the ants taught Lucas about bullying? And how does Lucas feel at the end? And why does he feel this way? Have your child go ahead and answer these questions in writing if they can. If not, it is okay to type it in. But if you get a chance to do this, go ahead and email or DM your completed work to me. All right, that's it for our lesson today, guys. Thank you guys so much for joining me in our Read Aloud today. I'll see you guys again on Thursday. Bye.